Hi again, everyone. Welcome back to our model walkthroughs for Bio 137. Today, our video is going to be a walkthrough of all of our joint models. And first, I want to apologize if there's some background music. I'm recording from home today, and there's a family of blue jays just outside my window that are being very active. So I apologize if that's a little distracting. But let's go ahead and dive in right here. The first image that we're looking at is the elbow and hand model. And really, most of what we're looking at is going to be the hand, but I want to go ahead and talk about some stuff that we see going on up here at the top of the image. We can just barely see the end of the humerus, but these two bones right here, these are what make up your forearm. Right here, we see this U shape, and remember from before in our long bones of the arm walkthrough, the one that has the U shape is the ulna. So here on the left side of this image is the ulna, and this other bone is the radius. Now, down here is where we're going to start to get into the new bones that we haven't covered yet, and we're looking at the hand and wrist. Now we see a lot of short bones right here clustered together. These are the wrist bones. Collectively, they are called the carpals. You've probably heard of carpal tunnel syndrome. Well, these are the carpals. And each of these individual bones does have a name. You are not responsible for learning those names. You can just call them the carpals. And everything else we can see are long bones. So the first set of long bones, so immediately distal to those carpals, this first set of long bones, those are called the metacarpals. And the metacarpals make the palm of your hand. And then we have some shorter long bones. They're still long bones. And these long bones just distal to the metacarpals, these are called phalanges. And each of your fingers will have 3 phalanges. Your thumb has 2. And while you can just call them phalanges, they actually do have a little bit more specific name. The first phalange, the one closest to the metacarpals, this is the proximal phalange, the medial phalange or intermediate phalange, and the distal phalange. When we get to the thumb, there's only a proximal and distal. So those are the bones that make up the forearm and hand. Now in this image, we're seeing the lower leg and foot. This larger bone right here is the tibia, and here we have the smaller fibula. We've seen those in previous videos, but everything else is new. So these are the bones of the foot. We're looking at the foot from above right now. We're looking at the superior surface of the foot, or the dorsum of the foot. And we have a lot of short bones. These make up the ankle, and collectively they are called the tarsals. We had the carpals in the hand, we have the tarsals in the foot. And again, they all have individual names. Most of them you are not responsible for knowing, but the larger two, the ones that actually connect to your lower leg, you do need to know the names of those. Here, on the upper part of this picture, mostly connecting to the tibia, this is called the talus. And here, making the heel of the foot, remember on the baby doll when we were learning surface terminology, heel of the foot was calcaneal. Well, this bone that makes the heel of the foot, one of the tarsals, this is called the calcaneus. The calcaneus is your heel bone. So collectively, they are all tarsals, but we also have the talus and the calcaneus. Now, just past those tarsals, we have some long bones making the arch of the foot. These long bones are called metatarsals. And then we have the long bones that make the toes. And just like the fingers, these are called phalanges. So phalanges are both the fingers and the toes. And similar to what we saw in the hand, all of the toes except for the big toe or the great toe, all of the other toes have 3 phalanges. The big toe, the great toe, has 2 phalanges. So again, let's look at the foot, but now let's flip it over. And now we're looking at the foot from underneath, the plantar surface of the foot. Here again we see the tibia and the fibula. Here we can see a better view of the talus and the calcaneus and the other tarsals. We can see the metatarsals and again the phalanges. So now we're going to start looking, instead of just at bones, we're going to start looking at ligaments that hold joints together. And what we're looking at in both of these images are the ligaments around the hip joint. So we can see the pelvis and the upper part of the femur. So here's the pelvis, the upper part of the femur, and these kind of pinkish structures here, those are ligaments. And what I'd like to ask is, if you are not really familiar with the pelvis, and if you are not familiar with the femur, go back and either study your images from your lab, or I do have some videos that cover those bones. Because once you know the structures of those bones, it's going to be incredibly easy to learn the 3 ligaments that you need to know here. So remember, from the pelvis, this large upper fan-like area is called the ilium. The backbone of the pelvis, the part that you sit on, is called the ischium. And the front bone of the pelvis that joins the 2 sides of the pelvis together is called the pubis. So if you know those, and you know that this is the femur, then everything else is just going to kind of come together, because the ligaments are going to be named after the 2 bones that they join together. So here we're looking at the back part of the pelvis. Again, down here, this is the ischium. We're actually looking at the ischial tuberosity right there. So if we look at the one labeled number 1 in this image, it's connecting the ilium to the femur. So this is called the iliofemoral ligament. Ilio, ilium, femoral, femur. It's connecting those 2 bones, the iliofemoral ligament. Over here, we're connecting the ischium to the femur. So this is the ischiofemoral ligament. And if we look at the bones from the front, we're connecting the pubis to the femur. So this is the pubofemoral ligament. Iliofemoral, ischiofemoral, pubofemoral. Moving along to the elbow, what we see here in the top, this bone is the humerus. Down at the bottom, we can kind of see a little bit of that U shape, so that makes this bone on the right, this is the ulna, and this bone on the left in this image is the radius. Now, when we're looking at this bone, think anatomical position. What position should the lower arm and palms be in anatomical position? So as long as you know that, you know the ulna is medial and the radius is lateral in anatomical position. So let's use that to give names to these ligaments. On the right in this image, this ligament that I'm highlighting is called either the medial collateral ligament or the ulnar collateral ligament. When you see the word collateral, it means that it starts and ends on the same side. Later we're going to see cruciate, which means crosses over from one side to the other. This ligament stays on the same side, so it is a collateral ligament. It's on the medial plane when we are in anatomical position. So this is the medial collateral ligament or the ulnar collateral ligament. Over on the other side, now we're on the lateral surface. So this is the lateral collateral ligament, also called the radial collateral ligament. Looking at the shoulder joint, there's actually a lot of ligaments here, but we are only going to be concerned with 2 of them. So just kind of to orient you, here on the left image, we're looking at the shoulder from behind. So here is the posterior part of the scapula. Here is the posterior part of the humerus. Over on this right image, we're looking from the anterior. We're looking from the front, and it is as though we are seeing straight through this person's chest. So here we're seeing the anterior surface of the scapula. This part is usually what bumps up against the back of somebody's rib cage. Again, here we see the humerus, and this bone right here, this is the collarbone or the clavicle. So let's see the 2 ligaments that we're concerned with here. And again, as long as you are familiar with the parts of the scapula and this humerus right here, then the names will come pretty naturally. First, this ligament that we see right here, you can see a little bit there was a number 1 there, but it's mostly rubbed off right now. This is called the coracohumeral ligament. Coracohumeral ligament. Over here we can see a little bit of it also on the right side. So coracohumeral ligament. And it is going from the coracoid process to the humerus. The coracoid process, it's kind of hidden right here, to the humerus. We have the coracohumeral ligament. And then this ligament is called the glenohumeral ligament. We can see it here and from the other side. It kind of wraps underneath and covers both surfaces. And it connects from the glenoid fossa to the humerus. So it is the glenohumeral ligament. So here we have the most complicated joint in the body, the joint that has the most going on of any joint in our body. This is the knee joint. We're going to look at everything here on the left first, and then we'll come back and look on the right image. So on this image on the left, we are seeing the knee from the front. We're looking at the anterior view of this knee. Up at the top, the bone, the white part here, this is the femur, the bone of the upper leg. Down at the bottom, we see the tibia and fibula. Now hidden within inside this ligament here, we don't see it, but there's the kneecap, the patella is within this ligament. So let's see what all we have to learn about the knee. This ligament that connects the femur to the tibia on the front that contains the patella is called the patellar ligament. Now we see two more ligaments on the side. Each of them start and end on the same side, so we're going to call those collateral, just like we saw with the elbow. And think in anatomical position, the tibia is medial, the fibula is lateral. So this ligament that connects the femur to the tibia is called the medial collateral ligament or the tibial collateral ligament. Medial collateral ligament is more common, called the MCL sometimes for short. Over on the other side where the fibula is, this is the lateral collateral ligament, sometimes called the fibular collateral ligament, but again, lateral collateral is more common. The LCL for short. And then we see these little pads in between the femur and the tibia. These are called menisci. One is a meniscus, both are menisci. And if the tibia is medial, then this side is medial. So this is the medial meniscus. If the fibula is lateral, that means this side is lateral. So this is the lateral meniscus. Medial meniscus, lateral meniscus. Now let's go over here to the image on the right. So now we're looking at the knee from the posterior side, the back of the knee. Again, just to orient you, here's the femur, the tibia, the fibula. We can again see the medial collateral ligament and the lateral collateral ligament. We can see the medial meniscus and the lateral meniscus. But we can see a few other things here now also. We can see a new type of ligament. These ligaments start on one side and cross over to the other side. We can see another one here, and it crosses over behind, and it would actually go this way. So these are cruciate ligaments. They cross over. This image starts in this view, it's starting on the right side and crossing over to the left side. And it's in front. If we're looking at this knee from behind, this one that we can only see a part of is in front, and this one is behind. So the one that's in front is the anterior cruciate ligament, the ACL. A lot of people have heard of ACLs because they're common sports injuries when they get torn. So the anterior cruciate ligament. And here, this one is behind. So this is the posterior cruciate ligament, or the PCL. Anterior cruciate ligament, posterior cruciate ligament. And that's everything that you need to know for the knee. So here we have, it's a generic synovial joint model. So we have very many synovial joints in our body, and this is a generalized synovial joint. Really, this is the knee, but it's showing us the common features that we would see in practically any synovial joint, with just a few things that are specific to the knee. So let's see what all it is we need to do. When we look at a synovial joint, the whole thing is surrounded, it is encapsulated, and they've just cut some things away here and there so that we can see all of the goings on inside. But inside a synovial joint is a liquid called synovial fluid, and that's what we see here in this image is kind of this bright blue color. That's the synovial fluid inside the synovial joint. Now, there's this kind of white membrane that surrounds the synovial joint. That's called the synovial membrane. We also see this green wrapping. This is a very tough protective wrapping. This is called the fibrous capsule. The fibrous capsule. Now, all of those items are common to all synovial joints. Since this is a knee, it also has some things that are specific to the knee. For example, this bone right here is the femur. This bone is the tibia. That's kind of upside down in this image. But we also see right here the lateral meniscus, the medial meniscus. It looks like here we can also see the tibial collateral ligament. Here we can see some spongy bone inside the epiphysis of each bone. And again, this is the femur and the tibia. So that's the coverage of the joint models. There's quite a few of them, but there's not really a lot to know on each of those models, with the exception of here the synovial joint and also the previous knee joint that we looked at. All right, so make sure to know all of that for lab exam and let me know if you have any questions.